Let's get started. So I'm Michael Bailey. You can find me on the socials at Yogurt Earl. I'm a distinguished engineer for mobile at American Express. One of our brands is Resi, and we recently relaunched our Resi Android app. So check that out if you haven't already. Resi is our restaurant reservation service. Today I'm talking about some developer productivity tips, things that maybe I wish I knew earlier in my career, but I've sort of collected along the way. This is not an Android talk, it's just a general developer talk. So if you're here for FlutterCon, these things are equally relevant. And it's a bunch of small things that I couldn't fit into any other sort of talk because they're really not big enough. So it's sort of a random collection of things that I wanted to put together there. So with that, let's get started. The first thing is sort of a mindset thing that I've found, and you probably adopted this in many areas, is sort of everything as code. So you probably do infrastructure as code. You probably do your CI config as code at this point, where it used to be things that you would click in the UI. Your documentation may be code already, if not, something to consider. Diagrams is code, your build is code, security is code. But the idea is to think about things that you do in your developer workflow, both personally and as a team, and think how can you make it declarative, how can you automate it, and how can you put it in a Git repo, and use that as sort of a first pass for anything that you're doing. And now it doesn't always make sense to go down that road, but it's an interesting thought exercise for everything that you do. Can you make it as code in a Git repo? So why would you want to make things declarative in that way? Well, it adds the visibility for your team. Everybody can see the current state. It allows you to collaborate. People can contribute to things that you've made as code and put into a Git repo. They can propose a change. It's a record of discussions of how you got to your current configuration in the pull requests that made the change. Makes it reproducible because it's all automated in a Git repo. It can be consumed by AI. We're all using AI tools, and if everything you do is as code in a Git repo, your AI can now learn from that, and when you're interacting with your AI and it has access to all your documentation as code, all your configs as code, it can answer questions about that and pull it into its model. You can share it more easily. If a different team has a similar need to something that you've done, they can easily copy it. It's documentation for when people leave. Now you know how things work because it's very automated and in a Git repo. And you can apply CI checks to this. You can add static analysis onto this, and you can maybe even automate some of it with AI. So as a thought exercise, outside of your editing environment where you're creating code, if your engineers are doing something, or if you're doing something, think about, could I automate this and make it declarative in a Git repo? And sometimes it doesn't make sense to take it that far, but even that exercise of thinking through how that might work might lead you down some interesting opportunities for automation. As a few examples, you probably have your markdown in a repo. If not, consider putting your markdown in a repo as documentation for your team. People will be more willing to edit the docs and less intimidated if they know it might get some review before it gets merged. So let's say you have onboarding docs and they're not already a markdown in a Git repo. Somebody who's new to the team may be a little bit intimidated about saying, hey, I think maybe something's missing or incorrect, and they might not be willing to go edit that document. But if they see it's just markdown in a Git repo, and you encourage them to say, hey, if you find something that's wrong or that you think could use more information that could help the next person, propose it as a PR, because if it's not right or we don't want that change, somebody will review your PR and you'll get feedback, but they probably feel more confident on day one adding it and opening a PR on those documentation. So move more docs into Git repo as an example. And if you're doing that, as a bonus tip on that, make sure you have hard line limits in your static analysis of your markdown, because if you have really hard lines, even though they might wrap in the UI, if somebody leaves you a comment on part of your markdown, and if it's a really long line, even if it wraps, it's hard to tell where in that whole line of paragraph text that they might have been talking about when they leave a comment. So if you enforce line limits on your markdown, it makes it easier to review in code review comments. Another one is diagrams as code. So in your markdown, you can use something like Mermaid to declaratively specify your diagrams. often diagrams get out of date, but if they're in code in a markdown repo, it's easier to go edit them for anybody to use Mermaid, because one, you have the source code, so you don't have to recreate that whole diagram from scratch if it was just like an image in the docs. And you can, it avoids starting from scratch in that case. Plus, your diagram can be better understood by AI if your AI has access to your repos to see your diagrams. So these are some things that you may already be doing as examples, but one that you may not already be doing that you should maybe consider, and just an example of like sort of the thought process, is what about your branch protection rules? So to merge a PR on your repo, you probably have some rules like it needs some number of approvers, or the CI checks have to pass, it has to pass through these CI checks. Those branch protection rules more than likely are not available for everybody to view in the company. If you're not an admin, you might not be able to view what the current setup is. And if you don't even know what the current setup is, it's hard to propose an alternative or a modification to those branch protection rules if you don't even know the current state, if you want to say, hey, maybe we should modify it and make it this. And so think about, could we automate that? Could we make it as code? And for this particular example, there are some GitHub actions out there that would allow you to make your branch protection rules as code, and then when they get changed, it goes through the API and sort of declaratively updates those. And of course, you want code owners or some mechanism to make sure not everybody can just willy-nilly update the branch protection rules. And it can get a little circular, but you can figure it out. So just have that mindset of everything that you're doing in your workflow and your developers are doing, how can you make it as code? All right, on to the next topic, tip, screenshots. We should all use screenshots more. As they say, pictures are worth 1,000 words, but screenshots are a great way to communicate in your docs, in your chat, in your pull requests, in your emails, in your presentations. And I think we could all benefit from using screenshots more. And it's one thing that I've tried to, on purpose, do more often. And I think it's helped conversations go better, helped me better communicate with those in the teams. And when you're using screenshots, annotate the screenshots using some tool to write text on them, point to things in the screenshots, circle things in the screenshots, so that people know what part of the screenshot that you're referring to. And we're all, to some extent, we're professional copy and pasters, right? Everybody copy and pastes from somewhere, even, from your code into chat, from chat into code. Make it as easy to copy and paste text as it is to copy and paste a screenshot. Make it that second nature that we all are copy and pasting all day long. Add screenshotting into that so that you have a shortcut that as well as your copy and paste shortcut to take a screenshot, annotate it, and quickly paste it wherever you need. So there's sort of second nature, and it's not something sort of extra that you have to do. Of course, always include a text description of what's going on as well to make it accessible and searchable. But this can bring a lot of context to a conversation. If somebody's like, hey, I'm getting this error, you thought they were using this other tool, but they're actually typing something in a totally different window, but they also include a screenshot, you can get to the root cause of things a lot faster and help somebody a lot faster. I have this mapped to Command-Shift-Control-4 when I take a screenshot. There's this tool called FlameShot. It's free and open source. There's a lot of other tools that you can find out there to take screenshots. But whatever you decide to use, make it sort of second nature as copy and paste. Another one, clipboard history. Why this is not built in as an operating system feature, I don't know. I think it actually is built into Windows. I think Windows has this, but on Mac, it's not built in as a feature. So get some sort of tool that's operating system wide that levels up your copy and pasting, because that's what we do a lot. You don't want to have just one thing that you copied and then you can paste that. But if you want to paste something that you copied 3 times ago, you may also want to go back and do that. And this tool will allow you to have a history of all the text that you've copied and pasted, and also the screenshots that you've copied and pasted. And it's called Mackie. It's free. It's open source. There's other solutions as well for that. So pick your favorite. But use clipboard history. This will really just level up your copy and pasting, which we do all the time. It's a searchable history as well with this. One tip if you use this particular tool is I choose to map this to Shift Command V. So it's like Command V, but a Shift Command V, and it brings up this. And then check the Paste Automatically button in this tool. I don't think that's on by default. Otherwise, when you select something from your history, it puts it onto your clipboard, but it doesn't actually just paste it for you. And generally, when you select something, you want it to just paste right wherever you were trying to paste something. So I recommend turning on the paste automatically option with this tool. Error messages. I think if we take more time to think about what error messages are from the beginning, we can save ourselves a lot of time when we encounter an error in the future, and save your whole team a lot of time when they encounter that error, and it gives them a much more useful error message that points them to the solution. Or when you see somebody in your team confused by a particular error or a particular setup, see if you can add a better, that's a good time to go see, can you add a better error message, so that next time the person will be able to self-solve and not be confused by that situation. So generally when you think about error message, think about all the relevant inputs that went into causing that situation, print them out in the error message. So that's sort of the current state. And then print out the expected state, like what should it have been, and then maybe give them the command or the documentation on how to go fix that thing, and then maybe also just go fix it for them, although you want to be careful about modifying state on somebody's machine unexpectedly, so maybe ask them first. So a couple examples of this. Here's a message that came out of a Gradle build. Anybody know what would cause this sort of message? It's very cryptic. Most people would have no idea what this means, and then you go ask on Slack or search on the internet or ask your AI, like, what happened here, right? Well, the problem here is that Gradle was expecting and built to run on a newer version of the JDK. It was running on an older version of the JDK, and this particular thing doesn't exist. This total memory size doesn't exist that it was using on an older version of the JDK. But that's not at all clear from what this is, right? So what could you do? At the very beginning of your Gradle build, you could put in a little bit of logic that sort of says, we know that you need at least X version of the JDK, so we're going to check for what version you're on. We're going to print a nice error message for you, and then tell you how to fix it. So with something like this that you put at the very beginning, before it runs any other code in your Gradle build, put something like this, and you'll get an error message like the bottom one, which is much more useful than the top. So it says, this build requires it to be run on JDK 21, but you're actually running on 17, so the current state, the expected state, and it gives you the relevant input variables like your Java home, and it'll tell you, make sure your Java home's 21, and then it'll point you maybe to some documentation that you might have on how to go upgrade your JDK and point to a new one. So this is much more likely to help the person self-solve and correct it themselves and be more productive. Another example that I ran into, I had a script that was going to benchmark something, and I got this error, conditional binary operator expected. Like, who knows what that means? It's not at all helpful. Like, what do I do next? There's nowhere like next to go with this other than to open up the script, try to read what it's doing, figure it out, ask on Slack, etc. But in this case, it turns out also a version problem. If the default version of Bash that comes on a Mac is very old, in this case, you can put a little bit of syntax into your script that checks the Bash version, sees if it's recent enough, gives a nice message, tells them to go upgrade their Bash version, rather than that cryptic message. So if you add this little bit of script, you get a nice message like this, like always print out what the current state is, like your Bash version is this, what's the expected state, it needs to be at least this, and then give them, if you can, advice on how to fix it, like do brew install bash or whatever that might be to fix it for them. Or in some cases, ask them, do you want me to run this command for you, if that is something you want to do, so that you actually fix it for them, not just tell them how to fix it. Another area similar is test failure messages. So we're all focused on getting test coverage, and we are focused on getting our test to pass. But as you write a test or you review a test that somebody else has written, think about when it does fail, inevitably, what type of message is it going to print out, and how useful is that message in terms of fixing that test when it happens. And this is not something that may pop into mind when you're reviewing somebody else's code or you're writing your own test. So for example, this test, anybody know what this test will print when it fails? And it's going to fail because it's clearly not in that list there. So the error message that this is going to give is expected to be true. Okay. Well, okay, expected to be true. If I see that on CI or in my JUnit, now what? I expect it to be true. Okay, it wasn't true. Why wasn't it true? Well, you can use better assertion methods. For example, this is using a library called AssertK, but you can use various assertion libraries that give better error messages. The earlier one was also AssertK, but it was using that .is true, which you can see in the commented out line. But if you use like a .contains, which only works if the input was a collection of something, this method will give you a much better error message. And it will say, expected to contain New York, but was Phoenix and San Francisco. So it's the same sort of thing where it shows you the current state of what it was and what was the expected state. And so you can sort of surmise like what might have gone wrong there and what you need to do to fix it. So think about what the error message is going to be when you write a test. When you're reviewing a test, say, hey, can we structure the assertions in a way that will be more useful when this inevitably fails? And you can also do things like, if it's a visual test, you can put a screenshot in the failure message and things like that. Whatever context you can give when it fails, think about that up front. Another thing to consider, something to use, is Kotlin actually has a compiler plugin provided by the Kotlin team called Power Assert. And this one, you just give it any sort of comparison in the assert, and it actually instruments the code at the compiler level to print out all the values of each expression along the way. So you can see like where it might have gone wrong in whatever comparison you have. I think there was a talk, maybe at KotlinConf, related to this this plugin. So if you don't use this one or AssertK, find an assertion library that gives you this sort of ability to have good error messages on failure. Next topic. You may have used this in PRs where you could do triple backtick suggestion. Normally, there might be a button in your UI to sort of fill this in for you, and you might not have even noticed that you were using this sort of syntax. But you can also use this. Sometimes that button doesn't exist. If you're using the integrated pull request support in Android Studio, you don't get this button. So you have to sort of manually type triple backtick suggestion. Or if the pull request is like closed, you can actually still add a suggestion because it might be nice for them to see the diff if it's already been merged, but you won't get that button that will fill it in for you. But you could still manually type in triple backtick suggestion. And depending on the amount of, like if you've selected 3 lines, that will be the top of the diff, like remove these 3 lines, add these 3 lines. So whatever is selected in the comment, whatever you put in the backticks is what will be replaced there. So you can see on the bottom here, if I wanted to add this suggestion by using that syntax on the top, it gives them this nice little diff, and they can commit the suggestion onto their branch, or they can add it to a batch of commits that they can then commit to their branch. So make it easier on the other person to accept the thing that you suggested for them to do, and maybe they're more likely to do it. Another sort of theme here, search everywhere. As you scale with code and options in your IDE and Slack channels or chat channels, there's a lot of things for you cognitively to think about. And rather than hunting around with your mouse for things, just get used to search, whatever it is. I want to find something, I need to go do something, search for it. So for example, in your IDE and Android Studio, there's a lot of menu options. Every new version of Android Studio has more menu options. You can do Command-Shift-A and search for actions to do, or you can actually search for classes, files, etc. But rather than hunt through menus, which doesn't really scale as they add more things, search for it. Instead of using tabs across the top of your IDE, I turn those off. So like that show you your recent files, those tabs, I turn them off, and I just use Command-E that lists all the recent files, all the things that would have been tabs, and then you could search. And in fact, anywhere in Android Studio, if there's a list of things, if you just start typing, it will narrow that by the things that you just searched, in pretty much anywhere in Android Studio. Search in chat. If you're looking to direct message a person in chat, don't go hunt for them on your sidebar. Just open Command-K or whatever your the search is in your chat, search for their name. If you're looking for a specific chat room, search for the chat room. Don't hunt for it on the side, because as you're in more chat rooms, it just doesn't scale to be hunting around for things. Same goes in macOS. Use Spotlight. Don't use the like tab bar or the dock at the bottom. Don't have icons on your desktop. Just always open Spotlight and search for whatever you're searching for to open an application. Like I said before, search your clipboard history. It's searchable in Mackie. Use the search to narrow down that long list of things that you've copied throughout the day to that one that you're like, I copied this an hour ago, I want to paste it again. Use search to find it. In Chrome, I always have way too many tabs open in Chrome, And if you spend any time like looking through your tabs, this is one I need to practice more, like not looking through the tabs. Unfortunately, you can't turn off the tabs in Chrome. You could do full screen, but that's a little different. But you can search your tabs in Chrome. And by default, there's a keyboard shortcut there, but you can search by the name of the tab or the domain of the tab. But actually, I don't like this shortcut, and Chrome doesn't actually give you a way to customize this particular shortcut to search for tabs. But I'm going to show you a way where macOS will allow you to customize the shortcut of anything that you can do, even if that particular program doesn't give you a way to customize it. Built into macOS, you don't have to install anything else to do this. So custom shortcut in macOS is keyed off of, it only works for things that are in a menu. So in Chrome, there's a tab menu up top. And then you can go down, and search tab is under one of the menus items in Chrome. Now, if it's in a menu at the top level, Mac OS level, you can add a shortcut to that through Mac OS via like exact string match on that, on what the name of the menu item is. And so how do you do this? Well, first you go into settings, and what do you do in settings? You search for the settings. Don't hunt around in settings. Search in your settings. Find keyboard shortcuts. Go into keyboard shortcuts. Go to app shortcuts. Inside keyboard shortcuts, hit that little plus button there in app shortcuts. It'll bring up this screen here. You can specify, you can limit the keyboard shortcut to a specific application, which is probably what you want to do, in this case, Chrome. Then it's an exact string match on what you saw in the menu before. So it is search tabs, ... and it has to be exact string match to work. And then you give it a keyboard shortcut. And now in Chrome, that shortcut is assigned to the menu item that matches that exact string. And Chrome doesn't give you this ability, but macOS will give you this ability to customize any thing that's in a menu. So if there's something you do a lot, go assign it a keyboard shortcut that makes sense for the way you map your keys. All right, next tip, the key repeat speed. So if you hold down like left arrow, by default, it's kind of slow. And I do this a lot. I'm moving around the cursor in my editor, in my terminal, in various places, and it doesn't move as fast as I want, and I'm impatient. So make it faster. Well, you can, again, search for key repeat in your settings. There's a setting, you can take it all the way to the fastest, and it will make that key repeat faster, so that when you're holding down any key on your keyboard, it sends that key more times per second. So in this case, if I move it all the way there, you can see the sort of difference between slow and just holding down the left arrow there, and fast and holding it down. You can see it's much faster when I've changed that setting. But you can actually take it one further. So you can take it even further and do what the third one is here, which is actually twice as fast as what the default UI lets you do. And this is via a command line that you have to enter. There's two ones you could set here. It's actually the bottom one that affects that gives you that third thing there, is the bottom thing. The first one actually affects when I do hold down a key, how long do I have to hold it down before it detects it as a repeat key? You want to be careful on that first line. If you do it too low, you won't be able to type your password because it'll detect everything as a repeat. And type a character in your password and it'll do it like 3 times because you just barely tapped it too long. So 20 is probably the lowest you want to go on that top one. But the second one, a 1, the lowest you could do via the settings UI is a 2. 1 is twice as fast. And it shows you what you get on the third line there. You actually, when you set this, you have to do this on the command line. You have to log out and log back in for this to take effect when you do it via the command line. Productive communication. So there's been a lot of themes here around communication. I mean, soft skills are very important in software engineering. It's a team sport. Getting together with product design, your software engineer teammates, QA, whoever else is involved to get something done, get it out the door. A lot of it is communication over your chat app, in pull requests, in video meetings. And so just thinking about how you go through all those is important and will make you much more productive, make your team more productive. So I'm going to go through a few communication-related productivity ideas that you can use yourself and bring to your team. And so I think that this is sort of underrated by engineers who don't think about this area of productivity enough. One is asking for help. Everybody needs to ask for help. Junior engineers need to ask for help. Senior engineers need to ask for help, and it's an important form of communication, and we want people to ask for help, but we want them to ask for help in a way that they can get the help and that's productive for the person providing the help. So make it easier to ask for help. And if you think about it, if you're like, let's say, asking on your chat app, I need help with this, I got this obscure error message, I don't know what it means, can somebody help me? The person with that expertise to solve that for you may have 5 minutes between meetings, 10 minutes between meetings, and the more information you can give them to see that and solve it for you quickly, rather than, oh, they don't have time because they have to ask you a question and they're gonna have to wait for your response. Give them all the information they need to solve it for you while they have that 5 minutes, and you'll get greatly increase your chances of getting a useful response from somebody. So what are these tips? So how to ask for help. There's a lot more. I'm just gonna go for a few here. First, just ask the AI first, of course. Hopefully we're all doing that by this point, but search for a solution in your chat app. Maybe somebody asked this a week ago and it's in there. So try to go find the answer. Often you'll find it, sometimes not. But then in your message, say, what have you tried already? I tried X, Y, and Z. It didn't work. I got this. So give them the history of what you tried. What is the outcome you're actually looking for? If you just paste an error message, they don't even know what you were trying to do. So tell them, I'm trying to get this done. I tried this, and then what's the error message I got? And especially internally, it's much easier to give step-by-step repro instructions. They have the same code base probably as you, access to the same tooling systems. So tell them, here's exactly what I did. I typed this on the command line. I got this. I was trying to do this. So they have all the context, and it may be something simple or a doc that they can point you to, the more information that you give them. If it's source code related, like I'm trying to do this change, it's not working, compile error, whatever, test is failing, show them your source code changes, push it to a branch so they could repro it locally and download it. Also open a PR so they can give you comments on your code. Even if it's just a draft PR, I'm trying to make this change, I'm running this issue. Somebody can pop in, give you a comment, it might solve your day, and you're making it easy for them to spend that extra 5 minutes that they had. If it's not easy enough, a lot of that expertise might just go right on by because they were busy for the day. So you can get a lot of expertise by making it easy for them to help you. If it's like my job failed on CI, give them a link to the CI job that failed so they can go read all the logs on CI and maybe this is what the issue is, go look at this document, right? Give them the error message in plain text. Like I said before, give them a screenshot of the error as well. And again, all of this, putting all this context makes it easier for the next person who has the same problem to search it in chat too, because they can search that error message and they can see the history here. And all the versions of the tools you're using, what IDE are you using, what branch are you checked out on, all that context so that they might be able to identify where it went wrong. And this avoids playing 20 questions with the person. Like if you only give them the first line there, like what you tried already, or just the error message, then it's like they're gonna ask a question. Then they have to wait for you to come back. And it's back and forth for 20 times when you could have just given them all this up front, and they might not respond anyway because they were too busy. Make it easy for them to spend that little bit of time and help you. And then you have all that useful context in your search app, and maybe your AI will see it and they will provide it to somebody in the future. And it's sort of a virtuous cycle there. And then think about, was that error message something that we can actually go and improve? Can I improve that error message that person got so that they will solve it for themselves in the future? So the next thing is like how to file a bug. Well, it's mostly actually the same list as how to ask for help. Do all the same things when you file a bug. And please take the time to file a bug. If you think about the potential benefit for you, because this impacted you, if you ran into something and they fix it, it benefits you. It might benefit your whole team if it was specific to your code base. If it's a wider bug that's important to the community, you filing that bug and getting it fixed can have a very big productivity effect for the whole community and people not running into that bug. So please take the time to file a bug, file a thoughtful bug that could actually be fixed. Here's an example of a bug I filed just recently. I was noticing in my compose previews and my snapshot tests, the layouts weren't working as I expected. Locales weren't working as I expected. Why was the locale that I was setting not getting picked up and affecting the screenshot in my preview the way I expected? So I dug into it a little bit, found this line in layout lib that I think was probably the root cause. I showed some examples, like backing up why I thought this was. I linked them to the particular thing that I think you're calling this, and this is the wrong constructor to call in locale, and call this instead. So I linked them to the spot in the code. I made it as easy as possible for them to go fix this bug. I actually provided a compose preview that reproduced the issue and printed out all of the relevant stuff so that they could see it's fixed. And in this case, they fixed it in 5 days. I put it on the Android tracker, and they fixed it in 5 days because I led them right to it, and it was easy enough. And this is now, this particular issue, I'm sure somebody else has already either ran into it in the past and just didn't take the time to file it, and I ran into it, or will run into it in the future, and now it'll be solved in a future version. So take the time to file a well thought out bug, and you'll help us all, including your own productivity. So thank you in advance for filing those bugs. Next one, before I even go to the slide, it's a little controversial, so take it in the right way. When you're chatting with somebody, I would say this website should be called like also include the question.net, not nohello.net, because please say hello, please be polite with your coworkers. But what you see on the top one there is somebody says just hi and nothing else. Hi is great, but also say what you came to say. And so that they don't have to wait to see what you're going to say, and you'll get better responses this way. So you can see in the bottom, of course, they said hiya, be polite, be friendly, we're all on a team, but also say what'd you come to say. If you came to tell them something, if you came to ask a question, also get to the point. So nohello.net should probably be also include the question.net. But depending on if people know you well enough, you can put this in your status message. Don't take it the wrong way. It's not meant to be unfriendly. But sometimes people can be reminded that also include the question when you're saying hello to people. And again, just those little bit of extra time that you're saving on both ends of the conversation can add a lot of productivity across the whole team. Pair programming tools. Make it easy to jump into a pair programming tool, not like a thing where you have to go log in and find it something. Whatever tools your company has available for you, set it up in such a way that it's easy to jump from a conversation when it's clear that, okay, we might solve this faster if we jump onto pair programming, or even just like the ability to see somebody else's screen. A lot of the things that I've shared here, a lot of things that I've discovered over time has been from me observing other people at work and just seeing how they work. What tools do they use? What keyboard shortcuts do they use? Maybe they use a feature of the IDE that I didn't know exists. Maybe they use a tool I didn't know exists. And by just seeing their screen and solving a problem together in that way, and doing that with different people on your team, you can learn so much, and you'll build your set of productivity tools. So make it easy, but you don't want it to be friction where it's like, this was going to be a 5-minute conversation, but now we spent 10 minutes getting into the pair programming tool. Make it easy, so that's sort of an easy thing that you can jump into for 10 minutes with not a lot of overhead. When you're thinking about these tools, see if there's a way to just sort of measure and analyze the usage of the tool for your own productivity, for your team's productivity. It's harder to quantify sometimes, but sometimes you can, and the tools that you use may give you stats. So for one of the video chat tools I use, it gives all these personal productivity insights. So did I join my meetings on time? Sometimes we're late, but maybe I only join my meetings 80% on time and I want to be 90% on time. So you could sort of set that sort of goal for yourself. It'll make you more productive. You got there, you started the conversation, you can get done with the meeting quicker. Everybody else doesn't have to wait. How much dedicated focus time did I have during the week? It can sort of look at your calendar and see like you gave yourself a certain amount of focus time. Did I schedule meetings outside of others' working hours? It can pull in their working hours for their calendar and see, oh, you had a meeting that was outside of the working hours for this person in a different time zone. Did I have my video on? Maybe you don't always have your video on, but maybe I strive to have it on 80% of the time, and I can see this week I only had it on 70% of the time, and I want to try to improve that. So it just gives you little bits of feedback and metrics. So whatever tools you're using, go see if they have these sort of insights, analytics built into the tool that you can use as a feedback mechanism from yourself. Do try to turn on your video when you can. I mean, it's the same as like when you're in person. You can diffuse a situation a lot quicker with a nice smile over a video tool to show that, hey, we're on the same team. Let's work together to finish this, versus like Sometimes things come across the wrong way if they can't see your face or you're just in chat. So turn on your video when you can. Default to open. If you can, where you can, I know it's not always possible, but make your chat rooms open, public. Make your repos open and public within your company at least. If possible, maybe open source them. Make your docs open to everybody in the company. Make your communications open to everybody in the company. One, so that the AI will have more visibility to all these sorts of things and make it more useful in the context of your company. But also the new person who just joined can see the conversation in a public channel from a few months ago, and sharing all that just helps a lot. So whenever possible, always think like, could I make this open? Is there anything here that needs to be sort of secretive? And think about that. I'm going to skip that. So notification strategy. One thing I do is I like start from scratch of 0 notification, like pop-ups, no sounds, no chat pop-ups, notifications that interrupt me. Really the only pop-up I have, it doesn't have a sound, is 1 minute before a meeting starts. I get a pop-up that has a meeting link for me to immediately join that meeting 1 minute before. And it pops up in my screen. Otherwise, I'm uninterrupted. And if I have time, I go check my chat. And I still check chat way too much. Still check email way too much, even without it popping up. But it really saves in a lot of distractions to just have that. And so I would say start at like notification 0 and then maybe build up. If you really must have that notification, maybe turn it on, but don't make it a sound. Try to minimize all that, but at least have a strategy. Don't just make it like everything's notifications on. I didn't even think it through. It's on because it's on. At least think it through. Don't get FOMO. You'll figure out what's going on. Like focus on your stuff that you need to get done, and things that are important will come to you. So now what? Think through all these things. Share your tips with those in your team. If you have some tips I didn't share here, share them with me on social media, etc. But that's all I have for today. So thank you. We are hiring. Check our website and have a safe trip home.